In the beginning of all things, before time wove its intricate web and space unfolded its boundaries, there existed a vast ocean of pure potential. In that unfathomable void, where the visible and invisible danced as one, the greatest mystery was taking shape, the spark that gave birth to the world and to humanity. Ernest Holmes, in his Transcendent work, invites us on a unique journey, a pilgrimage not only through the history of existence, but into the very heart of the spirit that animates life. Here, age-old questions come alive once more. Where do we come from? What force drives us? And what is the ultimate purpose of our existence? This text is not merely a narrative or a lesson. It is a map to the divine, a portal to the infinite. Within its pages, Holmes weaves science, philosophy, and spirituality into a symphony that resonates with the deepest truth, the unbreakable connection between the cosmos and human consciousness. Open your mind and heart as the words come to life. Allow each idea, each reflection, to awaken in you an echo of the eternal. For in this journey, we will not only explore the origin of the world, but also the creative power that lies dormant within each of us, waiting to be awakened. Go forth, traveler of the soul. The universe calls to you, and the answers you seek are closer than you imagine. Part 1. Content Analysis. In the beginning, God. These words are clear. At the start of time, only God existed. There was no manifested universe, no solar system, no form of animal or human life. God was the spirit of all that was to be, but he had not yet hovered over the face of the waters. Then this absolute being rose up and began to create. Where did the spirit move? What did it create? What was its model? What means or power did it use? Through what elements did it create? In summary, what is the world made of, including human beings? How did we begin to exist and all else? If these questions are answered correctly, we could solve the problem of existence and thus free mankind. The spirit was everything. There was nothing else. It was everywhere, encompassing all things. It was infinite. This absolute spirit would not have had the impulse to move without first becoming self-aware. Therefore, the spirit is the power that knows itself. As a result, it is one, indivisible, omniscient, and omnipresent. Everything it knows, it understands in full. In this way, we discover that the spirit operates through self-knowledge. It moves internally upon itself with infinite power and a defined purpose, bringing forth all that is created. In other words, what we see comes from what we cannot see through an interior intelligence in action, which knows there is no power greater than itself. The visible things are made of the invisible things. The only possible function of intelligence is thought or word. Therefore, all things were created by the word, and without the word, nothing that exists would have been created. How simple the process of creation becomes when we understand it. The Spirit is almighty. It only needs to speak, and everything it says becomes a reality. The Word was with God, and the Word was God. John 1. Thus, everything is derived and manifested from the Word. Every human or divine life and every manifestation is a different type of word that becomes an expression. We must never forget that the Spirit needs no help. It is self-aware, and with the simple act of speaking, it acts. It is difficult to have a clear concept of this great, infinite cause, the source from which everything that exists arises. When we attempt to grasp the meaning of the Spirit, we sometimes find ourselves in a labyrinth of confusion. We must think of the Spirit as the great reason behind everything. Being omniscient, it must know itself and all that it creates. In this way, it knows us and everything else. Being omnipresent, we can contact it anywhere, and we never have to go to a specific place to find it. We cannot know exactly how it creates, nor is it necessary to try to comprehend it, because it is always a process of internal thought. We must keep this concept in mind. The Spirit creates everything that exists from itself. All arises effortlessly. So when we struggle, we are out of tune with the way the creative Spirit operates. The Spirit's impulse to act must arise from the desire to express beauty, form, color, life, love, and power, all things that we find in the manifested universe. These are attributes of the Spirit, and they arise through the Word. Since the Spirit desires to rejoice, we find that the word that forms the interior activity of thought is the first thing to appear in the creative cycle, and everything else emerges from the effect of the word operating on a universal substance. If the word precedes everything else, then it is what we are looking for, and by finding it, we will have discovered what the world has been seeking since time immemorial. If we want to prove the power of the Spirit in our lives, we should not look for things or effects outside, but only in the Word. Man sees and touches only that which is an effect. The law, which we cannot see, is what controls everything, but it too is an effect. The law was not made by itself. It is neither intelligence nor causality. Before there can be a law, there must be something that acts. That is intelligence. And the law represents the way it acts. In the beginning there was the Word, John 1. This Word is the cause of the event, and the event is always an effect. It did not make itself. It is a result. Again, the Word was with God, and the Word was God. When we realize that we are like God, and it could not be otherwise since He is our Creator, we will understand that our Word also has power. If there is only one mind, it follows that our word and our thought are the activity of that unique mind in our consciousness. The same power that holds the planets in place is the same that flows through us. We must place the word where it belongs, whether it is the word of God in the whole or the word of man in the individual. The word is always first. It is the activity of intelligence, the effect or that visible something, whether it is a planet or a peanut. All things are made of the same. Therefore, what we must do is learn to use the word, so that we can all realize that we are creative centers within. A demonstrable principle. Knowing that the mind exists, we have an absolute, exact principle that will correspond to what we think about it. But first, we must believe in it. Nothing can be done without faith. This is why Jesus said, "Let it be done for you according to your faith." Matthew 9:29. This principle always acts according to the faith that people have. We must believe that this creative mind has formed our word within and around us. For example, if we wish to create productivity in our businesses, we think that our word about it rules over the situation, and that there is something that captures our thoughts and executes them for us. If we have grasped that all is mental, that thoughts are things, and that these depend on the word or thought, we will see that our word is the power behind the thing. Our mind is so adaptable and receptive that the slightest thought makes an impact upon it. People who have many conflicting thoughts will receive very confusing manifestations in their lives. If a gardener plants various types of seeds, he will get different types of plants. The same happens with the mind. The word endures as this premise is true. Everything depends on our mental concepts, for man is what he thinks within himself. The Bible reiterates this statement, often speaking of the creative power of thought. Jesus explained it by saying, "The words I have spoken to you are spirit and are life." John 6:63. The centurion approached Jesus, recognized the power of the words spoken by him, and said, "I too am a man under authority, but my authority is in the physical plane." And I noticed that Jesus had authority in the spiritual plane. Therefore he declared, "Just say the word, and my servant will be healed." Matthew 8:8. The Bible also tells us that the word is not far away, but is in our own mouth. It is not here or there. It is within each living soul. We must take responsibility for our lives. Nothing happens by chance, and we all must wake up to the fact that we have absolute control over our lives. Then we will have a broader concept of God, greater tolerance for others, and a deeper understanding of His divine nature. How comforting it is to know that it is not an exhausting labor to be still and know that I am God, exalted among the nations, exalted in the earth. Psalm 46:10. If the Spirit is all that exists, we cannot conceive of anything that can hinder its work. When the Spirit has spoken, the word becomes law because it comes before the law. First, there is absolute, omnipotent, omnipresent intelligence, the cause of all. Then the movement of this absolute intelligence upon itself through the power of the word. Next, the word, which becomes law. And finally, the law that produces things and holds them in place. As long as the word exists, things will exist, and since the word is all-powerful, there is nothing else. I am God, and there is no one like me. Apart from me, there is no other God. Isaiah 45:5. Let us make this quick. If you enjoy the content on this channel and have found it helpful, could you click the subscribe button? This will help someone else find this community. Thank you. And let's return to the text. I am spirit, God, and all. There is no physical explanation for anything in the universe. Every cause is spirit, and every effect is spiritual. Our world is spiritual and is populated by ideas, also of a spiritual nature. God, or spirit, governs the universe through wonderful mental laws that determine divine will and purpose, always operating from intelligence. This intelligence is so immense and the power so grand that our human minds cannot even imagine them. All we must do is understand how this intelligence works, harmonize with it, and align ourselves with the spirit so that our lives can be controlled by the great harmony of all the higher laws of nature, laws that have manifested imperfectly in man. This brings us to consider the next point. What is man? In the physical world, we find automatic laws. For example, a tree cannot say, "I will not grow," due to the law that keeps it in place. It grows without having its own will. The same happens with everything in nature, but when it comes to man, we discover a new manifestation of spirit, a being who can say, "I choose." In all creation, the only one with individuality and freedom is the human being, and yet only he desires, is overwhelmed, suffers, and is unhappy. Lord Byron said, "Man marks the earth with ruin." Why does he do this? Because he has not yet found his true nature. The only thing that can free him, and will eventually do so, is what currently limits him. God could not have created an individual without giving him the ability to think, and he cannot think without drawing to him the results of his thought, whether good or bad. This does not mean that two powers are used, but rather that we use the only power from two different points of view. All things exist in the mind as a possibility. The mind always acts based on thought, consistently producing its own images and manifesting them. Man must be the result of the spirit's desire to do something that expresses the same life he feels. Man has been made to be a companion to the infinite, but to reach this elevated plane of being, he must have his freedom and be left alone to discover his own nature. He will return love to his Creator when he chooses to do so. Therefore, the wonderful God must wait at the threshold of man's mind. "Behold, I stand at the door and knock." Revelation 3:20. It is up to us whether this door is opened. Man lives in a mind that drives him from all sides with infinite possibilities and creative power. The divine desire for infinite love increases within him, and he must recognize it, for he is the image of this power. His thought must be the word, or give life to it. In the center of this being is all the power he will need on the path of his expansion. We often think of God as someone distant, and man as a being separate from the absolute God. Now we begin to see that man is in God, and that he is simply waiting for man to recognize him, so that he may emerge and provide him with all the good he desires. Just as the Father has life in himself, he has also given the Son to have life in himself. John 5:26. It could not be otherwise. We are all in him, and he is the one who creates for us as we think. And since we are thinking creatures all the time, our happiness depends on it. For all these reasons, let us keep in mind the law of our life. The law of our life is that the Spirit creates through the law, which is mind in action. The mind can act when intelligence is put into motion. What is the nature of the mind's activity in relation to man's thought? It is one of mental correspondence. In other words, the mind has to reflect the thought that is sent to it, no matter how wonderful the universal mind is. It has no choice but to create the thought that is given to it. If contradicted, it will produce something outside of itself. This must not be overlooked in the subject of truth. The unique mind only knows its own ability to do what is conferred to it. It knows no other power and never analyzes or dissects. It simply knows. The reason people do not understand this concept is that they have not yet grasped what the mind is. Ordinary people think of the mind only from the limitation of their own surroundings. The concept they have of the mind is their own thought, which is very limited. We are surrounded by a mind that sees all and knows all and functions through all. The conviction that there is a mental duality has practically destroyed all philosophies and religions of the ages, and will continue to do so until the world knows that there is only one mind, whatever name it is given. There is only one, no matter what we believe, and our thoughts which operate through it produce all our events. We are all centers in the mind, centers of creative thinking activity. Nothing in the manifested universe exists that is not thought materialized, whether it is a bump on the head, a lump on the foot, or a planet. They could not exist if they did not arise from the mind, for everything that has been created comes from it. It is not so much about a negative power or a positive one. They are not two powers but one, a power that does not see good or evil as we do. It only knows that it is everything, and as such, it creates what is given to it. From our limited perspective, we often think of good and evil without realizing that we still do not distinguish between the two. What we consider good today, we may think is bad tomorrow, and what we call bad today could be the greatest good we have ever known. It does not happen this way with the universal power of the mind, which only observes itself and its infinite creative capacity. This will mean a lot to the thinking individual, because they will understand that they no longer live in a limited universe, in a world of powers, but that they are immersed in an infinite creative medium that, by its nature, must create for them what they believe. Jesus understood this, and in a few simple words defined the law of life. Let it be done to you according to your faith. Matthew 9:29. This is a wonderful concept to keep in mind. It is done for us. We do not have to do it, for it is delivered to us by a power that knows itself as the only one that exists. We may even believe that a mountain can change its place because the power is there to do it. Without this faith, there can be no motivation for the creative mind, and we do not get an affirmative response. We must clearly understand that this great power has to operate through us. The role of man, the creative mind, cannot be imposed upon us, for we have the power of choice. It recognizes us when we recognize it, the moment we think we are limited or that we have not been heard. The creative mind takes it and makes it manifest for us. When we look around and appreciate the beauty, abundance, and limitless nature of the world, we understand that some power is behind it all. We observe that everywhere abundance is obtained, that in all manifested things there is more than what could be used. But we also know the human being, so limited, sick, sad, and needy. And we ask ourselves, in the end, is God really good? Does he truly care for his creation? Then why am I sick? Why am I poor? The answer is in our mouths, in the creative power of our thoughts. But when the truth is told to ordinary people, they will continue searching for another path. God has already done everything for us that he can do mechanically, and has given us the capacity to do the rest ourselves. However, the great power is always near, ready to help at any moment, but we must use it in harmony with its laws according to its nature. Man must learn that he himself is the center of this divine activity. By understanding this, he should try to use more and more of his divine nature, and by doing so, he will become more fulfilled under the protection of the great manifest and unmanifest laws that govern life. What man is, he will discover that just as he was created from God, he must be of the same nature. This unique infinite cannot know anything outside of itself, as that would be a contradiction of its divine nature. The ignorance that man has of his true nature binds him to his own limitations until he begins to see things as they truly are, and not as they seem to be. In the infinity of the mind, which is the principle of all metaphysics and all life, there is nothing but the mind itself, and everything it does is all that exists, has existed, and will exist in the universe. This mind has acted in our thoughts, and that is how our thoughts become the law of our life. It is a law in our individual life, just as the thought of God is in the great life of the universe. To analyze it clearly, think of yourself as if you were part of this mind. Think as if you were in its center. That is its principle. You think, and the mind produces what you are thinking. One of the most important points to remember is that we do not have to create. All we need to do is think. The mind, the only one that exists, is the one that creates. Few seem to understand the nature of the law and believe they must do something, even if it is just maintaining a single thought. Thinking or knowing is what makes things happen. It will be easier when we understand that we do not have to do anything. We only need to know that there is something behind knowledge that does the work for us. Anyone who thinks in this way gets the best results and understands that it is he who can use this divine principle, that it is he who can achieve the clearest concept of his idea, and who can trust the mind to do things for him, keeping out of his thoughts anything that contradicts the supremacy of spirit or mind with a single thought. Maybe we could do nothing with just one thought, but by keeping it in the mind, what is there that we cannot do? Slavery and freedom. Do not forget that you are surrounded by such power. This is the principle of demonstration. This principle knows every thought. When we send it what we think, it acts on our behalf. Those who are unaware of this law must be so because they are ignorant of it. They are bound by their thoughts due to their human beliefs. Whoever understands this will begin to break these limiting bonds, will destroy every negative thought, and in the end, will be able to think what they desire to think. And in that way, they will free themselves by using the same power that once limited them. We must destroy all the thoughts we do not want to see materialized and keep the ones we wish to manifest until we receive the affirmative response. Never struggle. The mind does things by itself. Do not think you must fight against it. When you understand that God is everything, simply seek the feeling of total peace, knowing that you are using the perfect law, and nothing can prevent it from working for you. Many people are learning to do this, and no one has failed if they have been steadfast and used the law with persistent trust. All we must do is maintain the right mental and spiritual attitude, and then believe that we already have what we desire. In this way, the reward will be with us. There will come a time when we will not have to prove anything, because we will always be living so close to the law that it will do everything for us, without a very conscious thought on our part. So when you say, "I am poor, I feel sick or weak, I am not one with the creative mind," you're using that power to relax from the infinite, and only when you declare that you are one with God will you find the fast way to connect with that power, as quick as the way the Father found the prodigal son. The Spirit seeks, but whenever our mind thinks in terms of conditions, we will not overcome it. Difficulty comes from our inability to see our own divine nature and its relationship to the universe. We will not find the way to live until we awaken to the fact that we are one in nature with God. We will not find the way to life until we understand that our own word has the power of life, which will make us consider the use of words in our existence. The Word in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. John 1. Very near to you is the Word. It is already in your lips and in your heart. There is our message, and it is faith. Romans 10:8. What does this mean? It clearly points out that any power that exists in the Word also exists in our mouth. Most people are not aware that the Word is in their hearts. What word? We have not yet fully understood that the word men search for so eagerly is found in every word they think, speak, or hear. Are we the ones who strive to understand the great truths of life, the ones responsible for always governing our words? If any word has power, it means that all words have power. We do not prove this in the few moments we practice spiritual meditation, but we reveal the possibilities of the hidden word when we let our thoughts run in any direction. This does not happen in the few times we are silent, but in long hours that become days, months, and years. Those are the moments when we always use the word. Spending an hour daily in silent meditation will not save us from the confusion of life. What truly matters is the 51% of a person's thoughts when they are alone. We find ourselves surrounded by our own exalted atmosphere. We feel the force of the infinite, and in this way it becomes easy to challenge the storms of life. It elevates our spirit, and we think we are experiencing the highest truth, that all things are ours. In our busy life, it is good to take advantage of these moments. However, they are inevitably brief. But what happens with the rest of the day? With the hustle and bustle of the street, the market shopping, and daily contact with life? And then what do we get? The answer is yes. How necessary it is, then, to maintain independence in solitude, how few times we practice it. God sent an angel to speak with me. He wanted me to hear that word. The angel made that message known to me, whispering, "Fight." And God knew I needed that word, and the good was all but defeated, and evil was all but goodness. The word God sent me was simple, but it was able to relieve a spirit in the flesh from the pain of having suffered too much. It was love that fulfilled the law. In fact, few people remain balanced throughout the day because of the busy life we live. Where can we find the man who can live above his environment, who can dominate all conditions with his thoughts, and who, amidst the crowd, has his own path and advice? When we encounter such a person, we will recognize them because we will find in their face the image of perfect peace, and we will detect in their existence the freedom and independence that only comes to the person who has found themselves and is not centered on the external world but on their inner world. Such a person has the power to attract all the best of the world. They are the center toward which everything else must gravitate. The atmosphere they create and surround themselves with is one of absolute calm and peace. The world immediately sees in this person a master and willingly places itself at their feet. However, this person has been elevated above the thoughts of the world. They are not concerned with whether others want to follow or listen to them. They know they have done all they can do, and know well that all the teachings of the world will not create another like them. They know that true greatness does not arise from instruction, but from being. Thus, this person does not spend their life teaching or preaching. They simply are. And the person who has arrived will realize what they have achieved. Amidst external confusion, they have entered silence to strengthen themselves and have come into the world equipped with the power of the highest, and their duty is to keep the light they have received shining. We all must find a way of life, not only in silence, but also amid the busy crowd. Every one of our thoughts creates, and for most of us, these thoughts come in everyday matters, some of which may be very trivial. So, unless we control our thoughts in a way that makes time and place irrelevant, we will fail to grasp the power we have within us. We have within us a power greater than anything we have ever encountered in the external world, a power that can overcome every obstacle in our lives and put us in safety, satisfaction, peace, health, prosperity, and in a new light and life. And that power is the mind. All of the mind is here, the mind of God, the creative power of God, the life-giving power of God. We can have as much of this power as we need to use in our daily lives, to the extent that we can believe in it and incorporate it into our routine. The storehouse of nature is full of infinite benefits, waiting for the awakening of our thoughts to emanate and manifest in our lives. But the awakening must come from us, not from life. We must remain stable at the door of unlimited opportunity, in the eternal and immutable now. Today is the day to start a new life that will elevate us to the highest expression of all that is wonderful. The word we speak is the law of our life, and nothing can hinder it except ourselves. Through the ignorance of our true nature, we have misused the power of our words, and we should carefully observe what it has brought us, what we feared most. But now it will bring something new, a new heaven and a new earth. Individual ideas. We find that in the universe, every particular idea has a word and a mental concept behind it. As long as that word remains, that thing, that object, will remain in its place in the visible world. When the concept is withdrawn, the idea in the visible fades away and stops vibrating in the world. This is the law behind it. When the word is withdrawn, the ether condensation that forms the shape melts back into the formless. There was a time when the world had no form, and only through the word were all things that now exist created. In the moment our word says that there is no life in our bodies, the principle of life withdraws, and our bodies return to the substance from which they came. This is the mystery of life. We are capable of using this creative word for any purpose we desire, and that word becomes the law of the thing it was spoken for. Thus, we could say that without our word, nothing that exists in our life would have been created, since the word gives us the power to be at the center of our lives and direct all its activities. No discrepancy is needed. All we must do is know. We must awaken and, with the glorified consciousness of an emancipated soul, use the power that God has given us, the reason of the universe. This universe is reason. First, it is the intelligence of the infinite that speaks or thinks, and when this thought becomes active within itself, it creates the invisible universe with the power of its own word. We live in a universal activity of the mental law, surrounded by a mind that receives every impression of our thought and returns only what we think. Thus, each person lives in a world made for them by the activity of their thoughts. It is unquestionable that the mind must create from itself, and since this being has no limit to its creative power, neither does the mind in action. Everything we see is the result of the mind in action. We all have a body, and we could not have what we call a physical environment if it weren't for the mind. The law implanted within us dictates that we only need ourselves and the wisdom of the omniscient creative mind to do something. As long as we depend on any past, present, or future condition, or any individual, we will be creating chaos because we are dealing with conditions and not causes. Each living soul is a law unto itself, but few people are aware of this great truth. The human feels limited and finds it difficult to understand the existence of a power that makes things directly from itself, simply by converting something that already exists and carrying it out through self-knowledge. But we will not prove this until we see at least a little of it. The greatest truth about life is that we must understand we are dealing with a scientifically proven principle which will be eternally present and will never fail us. We can approach the infinite mind with depth of thought, knowing that it will answer us. Jesus, who understood this clearly, summed up the whole law of life in simple words: "Let it be done for you according to your faith." Matthew 9:29. The things that come to us, we do not have to make them. They are made by a power that is all. If we believe that a mountain will move, so it will. But there will be no momentum for the creative power, and we will receive nothing unless we believe. Action and reaction. In every thought we have, there is something that returns to us. God says, "Vengeance is mine, I will repay." Romans 12:19. This is a statement of eternal truth to which nothing can oppose, and whatever man sets in motion in his mind will return to him as he conceived it within himself and brought it to manifestation. If we desire to transcend old thoughts, we must rise above them and contemplate higher things. We are dealing with the law of cause and effect, which is absolute. It receives both the most insignificant and the greatest thoughts and immediately begins to act on them. And sometimes, even when we have already understood it, we are surprised by how quickly it works. If we have misused this law, we don't have to fail. All we must do is abandon the old path and start a new one. Soon we will leave the old law and enter the new one that is being established for us. When we desire only good, the bad will go away and will not return. Reaching a higher consciousness. The best way to reach a higher consciousness is to have great faith in the willingness and ability of life to do everything for us and through us. We must believe in the inherent goodness and great power of the Spirit of Truth. Thus, every path leads us back to the same single point, and we must learn to recognize the presence of the great reality close by. There, through the door of our thoughts, we enter the universal consciousness in a full realization of life and truth, of love and beauty, and when we surrender ourselves to our own souls and listen, it will be the most wonderful thing we have ever done. In that integrity we are lost, yet we find ourselves. That's why it is said that a man must lose his life to find it. We lose the human and find the divine, and we understand that we are one with the cause. External suggestions. Almost all people live controlled by external suggestions and not by internal realizations. Generally, man believes only in what he sees others do and hears only what others say. We must all learn to control our inner life so that external matters do not impact our mindset. Just as we cannot avoid thinking, we also cannot avoid making things happen to us. And what we need is to control our thought processes so that they do not stray from the realization of what is perfect. Man is governed by a mind that returns to him all thoughts he has. He cannot escape this, and it is not necessary for him to try, as it would be futile. The laws of the mind are simple and easy to understand. The problem with us is that we have placed great obstacles and then tried to overcome them. Stop trying, stop fighting, start being still. Trust in the higher laws of life. Though you may not see them, they are still there. Have you ever seen the law that causes a plant to grow? Of course not. Still you believe in it. Why? Simply because every year, from the seed, comes a harvest. Should we not have the same faith in the higher laws of being? Souls that have learned to believe in these laws receive a definitive answer, just as souls that believed in receiving a harvest from the seed they planted. This law is, and it exists. If we want to see results, we must use it. That is, we must be mentally receptive, and thus be prepared to accept the gift when the Spirit delivers it. This receiving is a mental process in which we free ourselves from all sense of limitation. If you desire prosperity, begin thinking and speaking of prosperity and seeing it everywhere. Do nothing or think nothing that contradicts this thought. The world is full of good. Take it and forget everything else. Remember that you always have the ability to rise above depression and rejoice in having been saved from adversity. The human mind needs to be cleansed of morbid thoughts that bind it through false beliefs. No living soul can demonstrate two things at the same time if one contradicts the other. If you want to take everything you desire, you must let go of everything you don't want. Look, listen, read and speak only of what you desire, and never again let a negative thought enter your mind. God knows what is good because He is good, and when we are in harmony with the good, He knows us. When we are outside that harmony, we say, God has forgotten us. On one hand, we have an infinite intelligence that has brought us to where we are today, and once it has done all it can for us, it leaves us alone so we can discover our own nature. On the other hand, we have the infinite law, which is an activity of God, and we can use it for whatever we want. And if we use it for the good of all, we will be protected. The law states that just as a person sows, so must they reap. The Father designed us to understand life, and we must walk in it freely. If we are in harmony with the great forward movement of the Spirit, nothing can stop our progress. If we oppose at any point in our path, it will crush us. This also happens with nations. If they work with the right spirit, they prosper, and when they fail to use this law, they begin to fall. Those who understand this will want to work in unity with the power of good, and to such a person will come all the power they can conceive and believe. Their word becomes an expression, and they must realize that it partly reflects the word of God. Thus, the one truly united with the good will desire, and in doing so, it will operate as intended by the Spirit. And although it may seem to fail from a worldly perspective, its success is assured because it is one with the ultimate power. In time, all else will fall by its own weight. The use of higher consciousness in practice. Man must always realize that he is in union with the Father. What the Father is and does, he can reflect in his own life. His word must be spoken with absolute authority. There should be no uncertainty. The word is the only power. Everything must come from it, and nothing can go against it. It is the weapon to use in favor of good and against all evil. It is the shield that protects from adversity and apparent limitations. The secret place of the Most High is in your own soul, where God dwells in infinite peace and calm. Now you walk through the waters of life without being disturbed by waves and the storm. The divine company is yours for all eternity. Peace will come that surpasses all human confusion, and you will realize that you are honored by the Father. His word will be proclaimed and no one can stop it. The sense of security is total. Heaven and earth may pass away, but the word continues to fulfill what it was sent for, and it is given all the power on earth and in heaven. If it comes to the aid of the sick and they receive it, it will heal them. If it speaks of prosperity, it will manifest and nothing can stop it. The world will abound in good, and its cup will overflow. How full is the knowledge that God is with us? Realizing this brings a peace that is little understood by the world and a calm as deep as the sea of love in which we can immerse ourselves. Peace brings maturity, and the union of these two gives rise to power. When we pronounce the word, we must have that serene confidence that knows there is no other like me. Realize that the Spirit is the cause of everything, that all things are made from it, that you can speak the word that is one with the Spirit, and there will be no more confusion. Just as the Father has life inherent in himself, so he has given to the Son the ability to have life inherent in himself. Just speak the word, and it will be done. The word is in your own mouth, so that you may know it and fulfill it. The higher consciousness man is surrounded by a great power of universal thought, and there are two things affected by our particular thought: our body and our environment. At all times, we are given absolute control over these two things, and they cannot escape the effect of such thought. In the beginning, the ignorant man, unaware of this fact, binds himself through a misuse of the laws of his being. But as he begins to see that he is responsible for everything he faces on the path of life, he starts to control the thought that, in turn, acts on the universal substance to create a new world. A great soul constantly dares to launch positive ideas of itself, with the divine as its guide, to perfect itself and be whole. If it has a divine thought, it will receive something divine. If it has a human thought, it will receive something human. It will receive what its innermost thought desires. And so we find these words twice in the Bible. With the pure you show yourself pure, with the cunning you show yourself shrewd. 2 Samuel 22:27 and Psalms 18:27. We act with all things according to how they are. We often wonder why we do not act better. We look around and realize that some people get wonderful results. They pronounce the word, and people are healed. We see others fighting against the word and nothing seems to happen. And when we investigate the reason for all this, we find that it is very clear. Everything is mental, and we are mental. We are in the mind, and to get something from it, we must first think about it. In fact, it is not just about thinking, but also about knowing. We must visualize within ourselves a mental and spiritual image of the desired thing. The reason why few succeed is that mentally they have not believed strongly enough to reach the point of excluding everything that could deny what they believe in. The reason others succeed is because they have genuinely believed. With that, they have allowed the real power to flow through them and express itself. Hold an object in front of a mirror, and it will reflect in the mirror the exact size of the object. Have a thought in your mind, and it will reflect in matter exactly. Let's take the object in front of the mirror, modify it slightly, and there will be a corresponding change in the reflection. The same happens in the mental world. What is imagined comes out of there and manifests. We must not deny what we affirm. We must reason from the spiritual and mental cause and eliminate any belief that denies its power in our lives. There seems to be something in the human species thought that says it is poor and limited, that there is a lack of opportunities, that times are difficult, that prices are high, and that no one wants what is offered. Success will not come to anyone who holds these ideas. When we express ourselves this way, we are using a destructive power. All those thoughts must disappear. We must expand our thinking until we realize all the good we can give and receive and use the almighty force for specific purposes. We must feel daily a deeper union with life, a greater sense of God, who dwells within us and everywhere. When we speak with this mind, we have planted the seed of thought in the absolute, and we can rest in peace. We don't need to rush because everything will be done in its time. If you call on me, I will answer you. Psalm 91:15. People often ask what the best method of demonstration is. The word, truly felt and embodied in our thought, is the only possible method to demonstrate anything. It materializes, dwells among us. We contemplate it and we experience it. The moment we understand this, we will desire nothing else. The person who does not understand these laws will likely say this is presumptuous or even sacrilegious. But what really happens is that they lack the understanding of the fact that everything is governed by law and that every law is impersonal and universal. We have as much right to use the spiritual law as we do the so-called physical laws. If we speak strictly, there is no such thing as a physical law because everything is spiritual. Souls with greater spiritual depth will always have the best use of these laws, for it is the one that most closely aligns with God's modus operandi with the law. Thus, the truly cultivated soul must have a very close relationship with the invisible man. This relationship is expressed with an inner feeling that transcends the power of words. For us, God must be the great mind that knows and at all times understands and responds. To say that God does not understand our desires would be to strip him of all consciousness and place him lower on the scale of being. Similarly, we must not believe that God can make mistakes when thinking, for then we would have an imperfect being as the first cause. We must learn to think about things in an absolute way, that is, to think that they are not limited by conditioning, and recognize our relationship with the great power is of total correspondence. What we think about him, he takes and does for us just as we think it. This must not be a torturous act. We must do it with ease. The law must return to us. We have no responsibility except to provide a proper channel. There is also a law of reflection between the mind and the person who thinks. What they think and how they think, that is what will be done to them. If you absolutely believe you can do something, the way will always open for you to do it. But if you also believe it will take a long time, then you are making that a law, and time will extend. On the other hand, if you believe that the mind knows how to do it and never makes mistakes, then it will be done without delay. Confusion brings more confusion. Peace brings more peace. We cannot imagine that the Great Spirit hurries, worries, or tries to make something happen. The only reason we worry and get upset is because we have thought there was some other power that could bring confusion. This is not the case. There is only one, and we are always using it, but according to our beliefs. This is our divine birthright. Nothing prevents it except ourselves. Remember, since everything is mental, you cannot demonstrate anything beyond your capacity to know about a specific thing. For example, Let's say you want to heal someone who is sick. Your ability to do so will depend entirely on your mental capacity to visualize that person's healing, also coupled with the understanding that your word destroys everything that does not resemble that visualization. If you try to see the sensation only for a few minutes, it will never heal. Your thought continues, and at times when you least realize it, conditions are being shaped in your favor. It is not enough to consciously declare the truth. It must be lived, or there will be no good results. The perfect universe, the one that desires healing, must stop seeing, reading, discussing, or listening to things about the disease. We must detach ourselves from what we don't want and take what we do seek. It is a lie to think that two things can be done at once. We can deceive ourselves and possibly deceive others, but the law remains the same, a law of mental correspondences and nothing else. Let's not try to go beyond our ability to consciously realize the truth. It must be remembered that water only rises to its own level. In our patience, in our environment, and in ourselves, we will reflect what we are, not in our best moments of silence or introspection, but in the long journey of life and daily thought. Acquiring fullness of consciousness is not an easy task. What contradicts the perfect whole must be eliminated from our thought, and we must realize that we are living in the perfect universe, populated by perfect spiritual beings, each of whom, united to the great divinity, is complete in itself. It is necessary to understand that we are one in the Great One. Thus, we will unite, and in time we will know we are living in a world very different from how we once imagined it. Of course, this will meet much opposition from those unenlightened souls, but do not let that concern you. Remember, the great person is the one who can calm the thought, remain firm, and have confidence. More than that, this is the only way to help or save the world. Tomorrow all people will reach the same understanding, raise the standard of life, and those who are ready will follow you. You truly have no responsibility to save the world, but you must exemplify the truth. In doing so, you will help the world save itself. Look at everything as a divine idea. In this sense, there is no difference between one person and another. Never think about what you don't want, as that would cause a false creation. If there is something in your life that you don't want, stop fighting against it. There is too much struggle in metaphysical thought. We often hear a seeker of truth say, "I have a great struggle ahead." Nonsense. The kingdom does not come from outside, but from within. Always stop all struggle and take refuge in the surety that creates what it wants, for there is nothing opposing it. As long as we think there is opposition, we are blocking the way to clearer vision. Those who take the sword must perish by it. This is how the law works. Cause and effect must exist everywhere. You worry about your karma. Too often we hear people say, "This is my karma," which may be quite true, but how many people know what they mean when they use the word karma? Realize that your karma is only your false thinking, and the only way to escape it is to think what is true. When the best enters, the worst goes out, because there is no longer anything that resembles the past. The past goes when we learn to forgive and forget. This clears the mind of everything that is against us. Destiny is in our hands. When we see things in their entirety and understand that an omniscient power is behind it all, we will know that the infinite mind only desires for us what it expresses in unlimited terms. The problem has always been that we reason as humans and not as children of God. As it says, "You are gods, all of you children of the Most High," Psalm 82:6. The great law of life is to think and become, and when we think from the Spirit, we will become great. Do not try to convince anyone of the truth, for that will bring confusion. The truth is as much as God is, and the whole world is gradually coming to consciousness. Keep the truth within your own soul, elevate your own being above the confusion of life, and then people will believe. That is why all our thinking must be created with the knowledge that the one becomes many, without struggle, without fear, free from everything that denies the truth. How limited we are. How little we think. The human race wakes up in the morning, goes to work during the day, returns home at night, tired and sore, eats, sleeps, works, and dies. It has been said about mankind that the man works hard to make money to buy food, and so he has strength to work hard to make money to buy food, and so on, over and over again. This was never intended. We have received a greater vision, which is demonstrated when we believe in it. We are not sinners, trampled, depraved, miserable, evil from birth, conceived in immorality and shame. This is matter. It always has been, and it always will be. Man is born from the Spirit of Almighty God. He is pure, holy, perfect, complete, immaculate. Many people are discovering this and proving it daily for themselves. At some point in human experience, we will all awaken to realize that we are heaven or hell. We live in spirit, and according to the thoughts we believe, everyone looks, but only a few see. Part 2. Practice. Anyone who wishes to practice metaphysics must realize that they themselves are a center of divine activity. You must know that everything that God is in the universal, He is in the world in which you live, and He does what He desires from His perfect will. You must think of the Spirit as the Father of your own life, eternally linked to it, and that the Spirit can not only manifest through you, but also desires to do so. The Father seeks such people to worship Him. The practitioner who understands the truth knows that while God exists, he too will exist. By walking, speaking, and moving in God, he not only understands the divine being as the great unknown cause, but must go a step further and see God as the great self-knowledge, the comprehending power of infinite intelligence that operates through his own thinking and desires in his own life. All power and all good. Even more, God must become within his own soul the higher self, the inner life and the light that will illuminate his path toward greater ideals. God is the great friend of our lives, always helping us understand all things. You will need no more books, no more teachers, no more preachers or beliefs of any kind. The old methods must fade, as it is known that God is everything in life. No one is the squire when the king is near. The stars withdraw when the sun rises. You must know that nothing can come between the soul and its perfect Creator. We have heard the worldly voices, and now our own soul will speak in an unmistakable language. We will become masters and interpreters of all mysteries. We will be one with the Father. The Word of God sets all law in motion, and since we are one with the Word, our own thought has the power of expression. Healing. Who desires to heal must know that evil rests on false impressions and must see it as impersonal without fixing it on anyone. The healer understands that the word they speak will destroy all evil and falsity. There should be no other sense of responsibility beyond speaking the word with faith and consciousness. All things perish in the old order. In the new order, peace replaces confusion. Faith dispels doubt and fear, and the word is supreme, and our word is law and cannot be disregarded by the false thought of the world. Every time we affirm a truth, we must know that it destroys everything unlike it and frees the thought of the person we wish to help or heal. This word must become the new law that liberates. People are sick because they think of sickness, and they will only be healed when they redirect their thought toward health. The same power is used in two ways. There is only one power, but we use it in two ways, either to destroy or to save. Blessing and curse are the same thing, the power of the mind used either affirmatively or negatively, and the word used in fear and doubt or in faith and certainty. It is not necessary to understand philosophy or be a scholar. That may be very good, but for one who understands the greater laws of life, they are like simple babbling or the cry of a baby. We no longer cry. We no longer analyze or deny. We no longer ask if God exists. We know. We trust in our own word because, first and foremost, we know in whom we have believed. The truth must be revealed through our own soul, not in another's. There is no other authority than your own soul, for there is no other law than the one your soul has established. Be free. Leave the authorities to the smaller minds and to those who need a leader. Dare to stand in the middle of the eternal path and proclaim your own redemption. Practically all of humanity is hypnotized. We get our concepts from the physical environment. We are told to see sin, disease, death, misery, unhappiness, and calamity everywhere. By believing in these concepts, we are giving them to the creative mind, and thus a law will emerge for us that will produce what we believe. But what does this law embody? It embodies that which will demand the utmost from our thinking. Like produces like. If we could see our thought and take a picture of it, and of our current situation, we would see no difference between the two, because they are in reality the inside and the outside of the same thing. We cannot get the results we seek if we make affirmations for 15 minutes and then spend the rest of the day denying what we have affirmed. We send the word, and it sets the power in motion, but then we think the opposite, which neutralizes the first word and leaves the result at zero. Instead, dare to say, great men have come and gone, now a greater one is here, and that is me. The world will laugh and perhaps mock. The Christian world will put their hands on their heads in holy horror. The non-Christian world will smile knowingly. However, none will understand, but that doesn't matter. Now you are free, and your freedom will save the world from itself. The great soul finds within itself the divine companionship it needs, and the peace that surpasses all understanding. It does so with all the power there is, and its word is the law of life for all those who hear it and receive it. Healing the sick. We will be asked to heal all kinds of diseases, to comfort the afflicted, and bring peace to the distressed. But first, we must heal ourselves. The work of a healer takes place within themselves. The idea of sending thoughts and holding thoughts is an error. Things come into existence not just by thinking, but when it is known that the word is infinite. This word is in your mouth, and it is only there that it can be spoken. There begins and ends your duty. Do not feel any responsibility for your patient's recovery, for that will bring confusion and disturbance. If you have faith and your patient is receptive, it will work because you are dealing with the same power that said, "Let there be light." If your patient is suffering because they believe they are dying from some terrible disease, you must know that when you speak the word, it will destroy this false belief and free them. But it must be spoken in perfect calm and with absolute faith that it will work. This word then establishes the law of life for the patient, which will make them realize that everything is an expression of a perfect God. When you truly internalize this and are absolutely sure of it, your patient will heal, as long as they also believe. Negations. Some people encourage the use of negations, but here we must always resolve each matter from within and not from without. No one can tell another how they should or should not work. Be careful with the danger of proclaimed authority. This danger can enter the new thought just as it did in the old, as no one is your authority in anything. Let us examine the philosophy of negations. We will find that many people teach and practice them, and we do not wish to criticize them in any way. Their reasoning is this: all disease is an image of the thought held in the mind until it appears in the body. If a human being has a sick thought, they will become sick, and when they think of health, they will heal. It is taught that since disease is a negative thought, it must be counteracted by a positive one, and that it is best to deny the sickness and affirm the positive thought. For example, there is no matter, and nothing can be matter. This person does not have material stomach or lungs, but spiritual ones. I deny that this person can be sick, suffer, or die. All of this can be seen as valid, for the person is a spiritual idea, and therefore must be perfect in its true nature. But one might ask, is this the best way? When we study the creative process of the spirit, we realize that negation cannot enter, for the spirit does not recognize anything opposed to its own nature. It knows what I am, and outside of me there is no other. The spirit does not deny anything. It simply affirms to be what it desires to be. In fact, the thought of negation does not need to enter our mind if we are working with the spirit. We do not need to deny, but to affirm, and realize that we are dealing with the only power that exists. There is a subtle danger in the use of negation. We can go so far as to build a barrier or a mountain to overcome. Once you realize that God does things by himself, simply by speaking, you will never again use negations in your words. All that needs to change is the false thought, and to affirm that your word destroys everything except itself. In systems that teach negation, we find that the most enlightened are gradually moving to the affirmative method. This gives us a clue that it is the best method. One thing we can be sure of: the spirit never denies, it simply knows what it is. The use of affirmations. Affirmation is the great weapon of the healer. It is aligned with the path of the original creative spirit and is the true use of the word. We only need to say that our word is the law, calmly affirm what we want to be done, and then not say or do anything that contradicts it, waiting for everything to be fulfilled. There is a power that operates with what we say, and we do not need to fear the results. If I'm treating John Lopez, I only need to say that I'm helping him and work inside myself to realize that he is a perfect being made in the image of God. I must know that I am destroying all imperfection. When I know within myself that I am speaking the truth and realize that he is perfect, The healing is done as far as I'm concerned, and if he accepts it, he will heal. One must always believe in what you do. Never see the negative side of life. Never speak or listen about it, and never think about imperfection. Thus, you will have no problems in making affirmations. The highest mental attitude. We speak of perfect calm and absolute confidence in the spirit. He who never looks back, lives in the present with tranquility, and looks toward the future with confidence, is the one who will demonstrate the supremacy of spiritual thought over all so-called material resistance. Stop and know that I am God. Psalm 46:10. No resistance, no need to strive more than necessary when facing evil, and it will go away. This is the affirmation of one of the great laws of our being. When we resist, we create a mental image of that which we are fighting against, and that tends to make us believe it. When we learn to seek only what we want, we no longer need to resist anything. It is not necessary to try to change the world. Let it be. All people are doing the best they can. No one needs to be saved except yourself. Overcome that attitude of I am holier than you. It is an illusion that many people suffer, especially in the religious world. The world is fine, it is not condemned to hell, and it is on its way to heaven. It is improving so fast that in the process, many things are being shaken, and confusion seems to be at the surface. A great change is happening, and while on the surface there doesn't seem to be much difference, beneath it, the power is destroying everything that differs from it. In time, we will all realize this. Remember that in the divine plan, there are no mistakes, and if God could have done it better, he would have done so. There are no souls condemned beforehand, for all live, move, and have their being in God, and he is not a God of the dead, but of the living. Matthew 22:32. We have believed in the negative for a long time simply because we allowed ourselves to be hypnotized by a few strong-minded but misguided people, and by those who have imposed a false philosophy on the human race. To be alive in the new order, there is no place for the dead. The true metaphysician is alive to everything that is useful. They take their place in the events of the human race, active in work and play. Pessimism must be thrown away. There is no place among the living for the dead. The Nazarene said, "Follow me, and let the dead bury their dead." Matthew 8:22. Do not hesitate to enter the game of life, but do it with an enthusiasm that overflows with vitality. Fill yourself with the radiance of a life rich in power and usefulness. Then the world will see your light. The people of New Thought, above all others, should enter the world of business, education, politics, and all areas of life, to demonstrate to a weary world that a man is a man, but also a child of God. Be happy. How can we expect the world to see the right path if we do not overflow with joy? Today the world has too many sad faces. We see them everywhere, with that resigned look that seems to say, "One more slight, it makes no difference. I am so sad that nothing matters, and I can no longer bear it." This was tolerable when we thought everything was wrong, but now that we know everything can be better, we must overcome the depression that steals our power to attract the good things in life. The man who is always joyful will surround himself with happy people, and life will be a continuous enjoyment. This takes nothing from anyone, nor creates irresponsible people. Rather, it helps create a world of joy, where it is good to live. No one wants to associate with the dead. People seek the full expression of life, not depression or finger-pointing. Do not blame anyone. Do not blame yourself. Overcome the idea of condemning people and circumstances. Let them be at peace and enjoy life. Your new attitude will encourage and elevate the people who come in contact with you, and a renewed life will enter them. You overflow with what has been given to me to perceive. I firmly believe when a man is happy to the core, God is pleased with him, just as you live in the present. Life is today, and for the change of tomorrow, we must start now. Today is the day of God, and we must extract from it what we are to live. And in the morning, the divine course will take care of itself. The soul that learns to live in the joy of today will never tire of life. Instead, it will discover that it lives in an eternal here and now. Now the good, the life, the truth, and love are yours, Lord. For tomorrow and its needs I do not pray, but still care for me, guide me, love me, Lord, during every today. Sister Marie Xavier, let your soul sing today so that the song of tomorrow will be sweeter and will resonate with an unmistakable clarity. A soul that knows itself and has found life in itself will meet with God. No longer must we wait or travel any more false paths. The goal has been reached, and peace has finally arrived. See the good in all things. Learn to see God in every manifestation, in every person, and in every event. A waking soul must see in all creation the divine mind working to shape and express what it feels is life, color, form, and beauty. There are some fools who claim that what we see is false, and that the so-called material universe is an unreality. What a tremendous error! What we see is the body of God, full, free, and whole, as William Wordsworth's story A Primrose by the River's Edge describes. A yellow primrose was for him and nothing else. Peter Bell, the protagonist of the story, never saw the idea behind it, only perceiving the matter. However, what he could have appreciated was the very thought of God coming out with great beauty and color, the one infinite manifesting in an infinite variety of forms. What do you grasp when you look at the human figure, the masterpiece of God's perfect creation? Matter, flesh, blood, and bones, of course. But what about the idea? What about its reality? Our body is as real as God is. The body is not a contaminating mass. It is the temple of the living God and must be regarded as such. We have condemned it for too long, and now we must liberate it by reversing the process of all things on earth. The human body is the most beautiful, the most marvelous, and the most similar to God. Whoever does not love their brother whom they can see cannot love God whom they cannot see. 1 John 4:20. Human magnetism is not hypnotism. It is divinity expressing itself through humanity. And when we learn to convert human passion into divine love, to transmute the inferior into the superior, we will have with us an irresistible power of attraction. Let him who has ears, let him hear. Matthew 13:9. When we contemplate a beautiful sunset, we should see God's thought and the radiance of his presence in the majestic hills, glimpse the strength of the Spirit, and understand all things as spiritual ideas, learning to love them because God has given them to us. The soul that in ecstasy can run to a tree and embrace it understands more about God than the priests who have strayed from the right path. He who can delight in the ocean breeze feels the presence of the divine being more readily than the one who kneels in desperation. Learn, then, to appreciate nature and the God of nature. Spend time outdoors, look at the stars, let them be your companions. Walk the pathless ways of the forests and see God's trail everywhere. Be expectant. Have the hope that the best will happen. Do not sit waiting for problems. Have nothing to do with them. They are not part of the divine plan. They are an illusion of the material plane. He who has learned to trust will not be surprised by anything, not even the most unforeseen events. All things are ours to use and then let go of. What more can we ask? We do not need to be accumulators. Things are for using, not for retaining. Be happy and joyful. Open your consciousness to the great possibilities of life. When you say the word, expect it to happen. This will not be deceiving yourself. It will be using the law correctly. Expand our thinking. All things come to us through our thinking. If we see life as something trivial or of little value, we will always be doing small things. The first thing in creativity is the word, but the word does not take us farther than our consciousness behind it. We will not progress unless we expand our thinking. Growth is the law of life, and it is necessary. We cannot remain still. If you want to do something new, have a new thought, and then you will have the power to attract the circumstances that will make your desires come true. Overcome the old idea of limitation. If you want to build a train, you will never do it unless you overcome the idea that the most you can achieve in life is selling peanuts. Let others make a living doing that. You step out of the routine. God has created you for a glorious future. The power of a treatment. The treatment has as much power as we place in the word we pronounce. We must know that our word breaks all material law and frees the patient to express God. The word will endure. Heaven and earth will pass away, but my words will not pass away. Luke 21:33. Speak and wait on the perfect law with faith and confidence. Be assured, and it will be fulfilled. Repeating the treatment would cure everything if it weren't for the fact that people constantly receive false suggestions from the outside. As things stand now, we should treat until we get immediate results. Every treatment must be comprehensive and complete, feel the word spoken from the mind that knows. It is immediately taken by the mind in which we live, and this begins to create the thing, thought, around the word. We must pronounce that word with authority and without doubts. When we plant a seed in the ground, we water it and care for it, knowing that it will sprout if we proceed correctly. The same happens with the word. There is no doubt about it. Everyone who dedicates themselves to it gets results. The mind exists and it must be used. Always remember that every one of your thoughts is the way you are treating impersonal healing. The mere presence of someone who understands the truth will have a great healing power. This is because we are all thinkers and are in the mind, and all manifestation is the result of the mind in action. We must know that we are dealing with the power that made the worlds, which is itself unlimited. It is we who limit it, and that is why it cannot become something greater. Thus we see that they could not enter because of their unbelief. Hebrews 3:19. Things are as great as we allow them to be. No more, no less. There is space at the top. Climb and dare to dominate the earth. All things have been given to us to use. Everything has unlimited potential, and we must know that when we fail, the fault is not with the law, but with ourselves. Therefore, we must dare. Think of the greatness of the universe. Think of the number of grains of sand in the abundance of all life, and never limit anything again. Jesus Christ had the courage to say, "I am." You must also be able to say it to some degree. We must learn to extend our hand and take what is destined for us, greater life and all that is good. People say, "Yes, but how is this done?" Simply be aware that God does things through His Word, and in your own life, you can do the same. Everyone can think and speak, at least mentally. This is all you need to begin. The Word is at the center of all creation, and it is the first cause, the starting point of everything you see. All you have to do is speak it. The problem is that when we speak the word, we immediately deny its power by seeing something that apparently contradicts it. If the word is the way God creates, it is the correct way, and if it works for God, it will work for us. It is true our word is imperfect, but it can be perfected, and so the outer condition will align with the inner word. We are the ones who give power to our word, and it is all you will need to obtain happiness, health, and success. Do you want to live in a perfect world full of friends who love you, surrounded by everything beautiful and pleasant? Do you want the good things in life? There is only one way. Forget everything else and think only about what you want. Control all beliefs that deny the real, and thus all adversity will melt before the radiance of your elevated thought. The prodigal son continued to be one as long as he wanted. When he decided to return, he was received by the Father with open arms. Similarly, when we return to that perfect world, we will contemplate the sky, not in some distant place beyond the clouds, but here and now, and then we will be free. We must eliminate everything that hinders true growth, even the smallest thoughts that prevent us from becoming. Human struggle comes from the belief that there is not enough for everyone. Forget it. You will not steal from anyone by becoming prosperous, and the laws that underlie this state of being are simple, easy to understand, and not hard to reach for those willing to leave the negative state of being. Prosperity. Here are a few simple rules for prosperity. First, remember that nothing happens by chance. Everything is law, everything is order, and you create your own laws every time you think. There is something, call it what you will, but there is an omniscient power around you. This power works like the earth receiving the seed of your thought, and it immediately begins to work on it. It will receive whatever you give it, create for you, and return everything you think to it. This means that the practitioner must be very careful with their way of thinking. Not only do we treat our patients in the deepest silence, but perhaps more than that, we are treating them impersonally at all times. When we take a patient in our thought for treatment, a current of consciousness flows toward them for as long as they are under our care. We must be very careful with our thoughts as we realize the profound truths of action and mental reaction. What is the spiritual mind? What is true spirituality? Many people have asked this, and many others have answered. I do not pretend to know more than anyone else on this important subject, but to the thinking person, it has become clear that everything is love, yet at the same time, everything is governed by law. There must be a different response than the one we normally hear. There are religious people who think spirituality must manifest in some unnatural way, such as abandoning all personal pleasure and resigning themselves to whatever happens, and that we must renounce most of what life offers here. This was not the case with Jesus. We have accounts of his presence at a wedding, at feasts and other celebrations. His first miracle was performed at the wedding, and we must remember it was the transformation of water into wine for the pleasure of the guests. Perhaps we have misunderstood what true spirituality means. Others think we must lead an exclusive and privileged life. That may be true for some, but what about the world? What about the people on the street? Shouldn't we save them as well? Jesus spent much time with both ordinary people and the rich, and it is certain he also spent much time alone with the Spirit. Who is the Spirit? We all answer God without a doubt. Where is the Spirit? It is present at all times and in all places. True spirituality consists in realizing the presence of this Spirit and trusting in it above all else. Then, the most spiritual is the one who trusts the most. That is all. No matter where you are, you must trust, you must believe. Do not renounce what leads us to think and act negatively, for nothing should contradict the advancement of the Spirit. Therefore, everything we think and do must align with what is right, but who will say what is right and what is wrong? Always remember this: your soul will tell you what is right and what is wrong. As Shakespeare said in the Hamlet, "To thine own self be true, for it follows, as the night follows the day, that you cannot be false to anyone. Do not seek anyone to guide you. That would be a blind person leading another blind person. The Almighty has placed the truth within your own soul. Seek it there and only there, for you will not find it in other people, no matter how exotic and spiritual they may seem. To the one who knows the truth, both praise and criticism sound the same. But from a human perspective, one cannot help but be amused, at least, by the way the world judges true spirituality. My idea of authentic spirituality is that a person should live a normal life, enjoying everything that is pure and good, and must place themselves under divine guidance. Then they will be the same as others, neither better nor worse. They will transcend all forms of unnatural thinking, remembering that all is good and will not criticize people or things. Your spirituality aligns with the trust you have in the Spirit at all times and in all places. For this, you do not have to isolate yourself from the world. Doing so would be an open confession of your own weakness and lack. Of course, there are times when it is better to be alone with the power of those moments. From those moments we draw strength, but keeping that strength only for ourselves is pure selfishness. Walk and talk hand in hand with everyone. Love, live, and learn. Be natural and normal. If you intend to act otherwise, everything must be done again, for no one lives or dies for themselves but for all. The Church of God is not built with hands, for it is eternal. Its dome is the sky, and it is illuminated by the stars of divine thought. Here, all people recognize God within their own souls and ask for no one else. When you can consider all of creation as the perfect work of God, you will become a member of this church. I doubt very much that the universal church admits members from an individual church. When you can see in the saint and the sinner the same person, when you can understand that the one who kneels before the altar and the one who lies drunk in the street is the same, when you can love one as much as the other, you will undoubtedly be admitted. Today we have too many preachers who do not understand, too many prayers, too many creeds, too many teachers who have no message, too many churches, too many scholars, and very few thinkers. The kingdom of God comes without observation. Luke 17:20. It is the whispering voice inside the soul that speaks the expanded thought. You will never wish to be assimilated, for nothing human can contain it. Feel the limitation of form and long for the freedom of spirit. The great God of everywhere, alone in the desert, in the forest, beside the ocean, gazing at the stars, let us pronounce, I am with my Creator and with myself, walking toward prosperity. The healing of ailments is no different from any other. All healing is the constructive use of a mental law that the world is gradually beginning to understand. We must reiterate the principle of all life. We are surrounded by a thinking medium from which all things come. We think in it, and it does the rest. Since we are thinking beings, and the creative mind receives our thought and cannot help but create, it must always be doing something for us. But what it will do depends solely on what we are thinking, and what we attract will depend on us maintaining the thought and excluding anything that contradicts it. It is not enough to sit and say, I am one with infinite life. This must mean more than just words. It must be felt. It must become the embodiment of a positive mental attitude. It is not claiming that something that will happen is true, nor is it sending an aspiration, a wish, or a prayer. Instead, it must be the embodiment of what is now. This is more than holding a thought. Our ability to attract will depend on the greatness of our thought. We feel it flowing toward a great universal creative power. Here we approach form in thought, not form in matter. We have learned that when we obtain the true form in thought and it impregnates us, we will see how thought materializes without any additional effort on our part. Thought can only attract to us what is first embodied mentally. We cannot draw to us what we are not. We can only exteriorize what we have first embodied mentally inside of us. What has become part of our deep understanding? A man who dedicates himself to a business will attract what he thinks most about. If he is a barber, he will attract people who want to shave or get a haircut. If he sells shoes, he will attract people who want to buy shoes. So it is with everything. But we do not only do this, we also attract anything that we mentally embody. This is often overlooked in the study of metaphysics. It is not enough to say we attract what we think. Rather, we become what we think. Do not get sentimental about it, for your life is governed by a law that cannot be broken, one that collects every mental attitude and does something with them. This fundamental proportion of the law should apply to our particular conditions. You must remember that it does exactly what we think. It does not argue. It simply does what we think, how we think. Never ask a patient how they feel. Ask them, how are you thinking today? That is the only thing that matters, how we think about life and our conditions. If we believe there is not enough for everyone, then something will make sure it becomes part of our expression. Most people, through ignorance of the higher laws of their being, suffer from the thoughts imposed upon them by a negative world filled with doubt. We who claim the use of the higher law must emancipate ourselves from all limitation. We must judge life from the way the Spirit does things, not from the way things have been done in the past. The way of the Spirit is to create by becoming what it thinks. There is no other way to act, for it is the all, and there is nothing else. The clash of opposing forces never enters its mental work. When we judge from the outside, we do not work in harmony with the power we should be using. We must come to see that there is only one power, for there is not a power of poverty and a power of prosperity. There is one that becomes many, does and undoes, so that a higher form may seem to express itself through it. As far as we are concerned, what we are and what we will become depends solely on what we think, for this is the way to use creative power. We do not have to create, but work in harmony with the Spirit. We always use, never create anything. All the intelligence of the human species could not make even a single rosebud. It has no such power. But our slightest mental thought makes the power create for us. The great mistake of human beings has always been thinking that a physical reason can be given for things when that reason has not answered the problems of life. They have looked for another reason on the same earthly plane, but all are mistaken. This is demonstrated by the fact that each generation has found a different reason. When the truth is found, it is understood that it never changes to fit the whims of human fantasy. This is because the truth is one and has never changed. Whoever touches the truth, no matter in which generation, will always get the same answer. The truth revealed from Moses to the time of Jesus is the same truth that is still revealed to all who accept it. We now live in a spiritual universe governed by the mental laws of cause and effect. Moses could glimpse it, but what does this mean? As St. Paul said, "Whatsoever a man soweth, that shall he also reap." Galatians 6:7. Moses saw the law. Jesus not only saw the law but understood its reason for being and revealed to us a God of love who works out the great inner concepts of his own being in harmony and beauty, full of peace, making the sun shine equally on the just and the unjust. Jesus did not try to override the use of the law. "I have not come to abolish but to fulfill." Matthew 5:17. He understood the entire law and knew well that the law was at his command. He did not break the law but fulfilled it. Therefore, we must know that everything is at our disposal through these very laws. The person who understands and follows the law will have no difficulty in proving that it is as true for them as it was for anyone else. So what are the laws underlying prosperity? The first is this, and must not be evaded. "Thou shalt have no other gods before me." Deuteronomy 5:8. We must therefore trust only in God and his workings for what we need. But the world will say that human things come through human actions. This may be true, but we must remember that the power we deal with contains within its own mind all people and all things. So what we must do is embody the principle. The principle can use people, but that is not part of our responsibility. Ultimately, all is spirit, which is the beginning and the end of all manifestation. I am the Alpha and the Omega, Revelation 22:13. Therefore, our lives must be governed by the Spirit. We do not need to seek further. He will do everything for us that we ask, as long as we believe. Then why hasn't He done it? The answer is that He has, but we have not received it. The Spirit can offer, but we must mentally accept the gift before it is realized. Behold, I stand at the door and knock. Revelation 3:20. The way we think mentally is the way we direct ourselves toward prosperity. So simple, and yet we have not understood it. If a person says, I don't have, they will not receive. If they say, I have, they will receive. To everyone who has, more will be given, but from the one who has not, even what he has will be taken away. Luke 19:26. This is a mystery of the law of cause and effect. When you think you have nothing, the mind accepts the idea and takes away even what you have. Say that you have, and immediately it will begin to act to create for you even more than you possess. The level of consciousness, since all is mental, life is simply a law of thought and an activity of consciousness. The power flows through us. If we have great receptivity, it will do great things. The Spirit is only able to do for us what it can work through us. Unless we can provide the consciousness, it cannot grant the gift. Few people have great consciousness, and this explains why they do not excel. The power has no limits and must become what we make of it. We carry within our souls the key to all expression, but few can take it. The door cannot be seen with the physical eye, and even fewer have acquired the ability to see it. Most people only look at it. When we understand that the unlimited power must be set in motion through our thought, we will see that we need greater consciousness, a deeper understanding of life, and a grander concept of being. We must unify ourselves with the great whole. The person who dares to send their thought confidently into the universal mind will discover that God will honor and exceed their request. On the other hand, the one who fears to speak, afraid that God will punish them, will find that the law will sanction them, not because God is angry, but because things happen according to their beliefs. We have the right to possess, and we must expect in this world everything that contributes to comfort and luxury in life, as long as we do not steal. What does it matter how much we have? That power, which extends generously in nature, should give us its highest expression, that is, everything we can ask. It dishonors God when we ask for less to achieve great results. We must expand our thought so that we can also say, I am the soul that knows its own divinity. It must be revered by everything else. Dare to think in universal terms about all things. Put aside thoughts that reduce everything to smallness. The universe is overflowing with goods for you. But first you must believe before taking them. Dare to believe that your word is invincible when you speak it. Do you feel it is limitless? All power in heaven and on earth has been given to you. You are one with the power. Until you can say yes to all these questions, you will not reach the power, and it will not work otherwise. Things are as they are, and we must take them. Your word has only the power that you put into it, no more, no less. We are all responsible for every word we say because all is the action and reaction of the mind. We are our own heaven and hell. When starting a business and asking ourselves what the chances of success are, we realize that the exterior is simply the manifestation of the interior. In any new place, we will only find what we have brought with us. If we have brought success, we will find success. If we have brought failure, that is what we will find. This is a law that no one can escape. Likewise, every living soul is a law unto itself. There is no law other than the one my own soul establishes. Practice for prosperity. Prosperity is in our hands to do with it as we wish, but if we want to achieve it, we must control our thoughts. If we desire activity, we must think, visualize, and speak of activity. The word in its power will make it happen, but we can only speak the word that we understand, and the activity will correspond to our internal concepts. If these are grand, the results will be grand. What needs to be done is to unify ourselves with all the greatest ideas we can encompass and expand our internal concepts, realizing that our ideas govern the power of attraction at our disposal. We will speak the word, and it will become reality, but it will only happen if the consciousness grows. It will manifest in greater opportunities and in a wider field of action. Most people think in terms of universal powers, and when you speak, feel surrounded by all the power that exists, and never doubt the realization of what you are about to say. We must tell the mind everything we desire and believe it will grant it to us. Never waste time listening to those who doubt. Their philosophy has done very little for the salvation of humanity. Instead, let the dead bury the dead. Think only about what you want to happen, and never be led by mental laziness or self-limitation. See yourself as if you were already in the position you desire. Think about it. Then with perfect certainty, say that it is accomplished. Afterward, forget it and trust in the law. This will respond to all needs. If you want to do it for someone else, just think about that person and go through the same mental action process. This way, you will send the truth for them, and the mind must always be in activity, not contradicting what you have said. Remember, you will not get results unless you maintain a single idea and do not mix thoughts in your mind. All is yours, but you must take it and believe with absolute certainty. This is the divine principle. Conclusion. The principle is simple and eternal. It is infinite mind and manifestation. We live in a spiritual universe governed through thought or word, which first becomes law, creating what we call matter. Jesus Christ, discerning, knew that this law could operate through his thought and through the power of his word. When you and I stop seeking outside of ourselves, we will realize that any truth and any power we possess must flow through us. Only when we have correctly interpreted our nature will we begin to understand God, the law, and life. We live, move, and have our being in what we call a creative, infinite mind, which is receptive, omnipotent, and omniscient. We have learned that this mind presses on us from all sides, flows through us, and becomes operative through our thought. The human species, ignorant of the laws of this mind and the power of its own thought, has misused and abused creative power, bringing upon itself many hardships and tragedies. This is true because all thought is law, and all law is mind in action. The word you proclaim today will be the law that governs your life tomorrow, just as the word you proclaimed yesterday, consciously or unconsciously, governs your life today. As metaphysicians, we do not deal with a material universe, nor do we deny a metaphysical universe. Instead, we affirm that manifestation is the result of the internal activity of the mind, and if we desire a particular manifestation, we must produce a particular internal activity. You and I will deal with mental and spiritual laws, with the power of thought and mind. The more spiritual the thought, the greater the manifestation. The greater our trust in God, the greater the power. This is the new education that eliminates all the falsehoods of old beliefs and illuminates the individual. It is the new that will represent and express perfect life. If you know the infinite power that flows through you and remain sick, unhappy, miserable, and poor, my friend, it is your fault. Do not blame God. Do not blame humanity. You are responsible. Every time you say I am, you acknowledge the infinite presence of the great power within you, which is none other than God acting through your thought, which can attract what you want, but also what you fear. When 51% of your thought is of health, life, and power, that day, that percentage will rise and erase the rest. The day you, through 51% of your thought, surpass the perception of limitation, you will draw from the universe all that you desire. Poverty will abandon you, and you will be free forever. The day you think 51% in happiness, misery will go, and it will never return. Time and effort are very valuable, and everyone should have as their greatest purpose to represent this principle in order to emancipate themselves. The way can be shown, but each individual must walk it themselves. We are so manipulated by suggestion and hypnotized by false beliefs, so entangled by the chaotic thought of the world based on the principle of a dual mind, that we confuse ourselves and do not recognize ourselves. Wake up. Your word is powerful. Your consciousness is one with omnipotence. Your thought is infinite. Your destiny is eternal, and your home must be heaven. Realize the truth. We live in the great universe of perfection, from cause to effect, from beginning to end. It always was and always will be. The world is well, and we know it. The great principle of life, majestic, calm, and eternally patient, is ready to give us all it has. As for us, let us discard everything that hinders its total expression. Let go of all forced struggle, and we will be at peace with life, a perfect peace for the soul, while we rest in our union with all that exists, has existed, or will ever exist. In other words, be one with the infinite mind. Let us remember that all the power of the Spirit works through our thought, as long as we believe and receive. Now, ask and take what you have desired. It is already done, already complete now and forever. Perfect life, healing, harmony, divine guidance, infinite strength, and eternal joy is what awaits us. Questions and answers. What is truth? Truth is what is, since there cannot be something and nothing at the same time. Truth, being what it is, must at the same time be everything that exists. Where is truth? If truth is everything, it must be everywhere. Being everything, no substance can divide it. And being indivisible, it is present everywhere. Truth means all power must be present at all times, at all points, or at any given point. Has truth changed? A substance cannot change unless something moves it to do so. Since truth is everything, it cannot change because there is nothing else for it to transform into. Therefore, truth has never changed. Is truth one or many? It must be one because it is everything and is conscious. Truth is conscious because man is conscious, and we could not be conscious if truth were not. What emerges from life? Everything that exists emerges from life. Everything is a form of life. How does life do things? By being everything, it must act and do everything from itself, about itself, and through itself. And being conscious, it must know that it is doing it. What is this inner movement of life called? It is called thought or self-knowledge of life or spirit. ... Then the universe and everything that is part of it comes from thought. Indeed, this is so. We do not see a visible world that seems to change. How is it possible that it proceeds from something that never changes? We do see a changing world in terms of thought or form, but behind it there is an immutable substance. We confirm this when we resolve all things into a single source. All so-called material things can be reduced to a formless substance whose only activity must be thought, or the movement of intelligence upon itself. What causes the form to change? The intelligence behind it. Therefore, there is nothing else in the universe except life, thought, and form. Indeed, there is nothing else. If it is true, what is physical law? It is simply the result of the inner movement of life. If things and laws are the result of the inner movement of life, it follows that what we think are things. Thus all things are forms of thought. How long does a thought last as form? It will last as long as it remains in life or in the mind. Does thought ever change, life or mind? Or as far as we know, does it seem to change? That is, planets change, take form, and lose it again. When we realize that all this can happen without the substance behind it changing, we see no reason why the thought of God cannot build higher forms. In fact, this is one of the teachings of ancient wisdom. While reality never changes, the form it takes is always changing. And what is man in the creative order? Man is a thinking center in the mind and reproduces on a smaller scale everything that exists in the universe. Likewise, what we call creation is not making something from nothing but thought taking form. And this has a creative character. What is our thought? It is the activity of that inner something that can say, I am. What is the difference between God and man? Based on the premise that man can say, I am, it demonstrates that he is. Therefore, he must be made of life and be a part of everything that exists. This implies that he is a part of the consciousness of God. The difference is only one of degree. Man belongs to life and belongs to God. If this is true, why does man seem so limited? It is all due to the thoughts he has. These are things, and they will always materialize, to a greater or lesser extent, whether positive or negative. However, the fact that thought can limit also implies that it could liberate him by simply changing his mindset. But why is man made in such a way that he can think in two ways? This question only has one answer. Unless a man can think as he wishes, he would not be a man. He would only be part of a mechanism without will. On the contrary, he is an individuality with free choice, backed by a power that will produce, without delay, the things he chooses. By discovering himself, the human being chooses many things, uses them, and progressively elevates himself in the scale of being. What is evil? What is sin? Evil is the result of a lack of clear vision based on the belief in duality, which claims that evil is just as powerful as good. What we call sin is an undesired outcome that may occur in the struggle of man to find himself. If this is true, why couldn't we start transforming our life with a change of thought? It is possible, but it would not alter the real substance, only the form of our thought, through which experiences come to us. What is the limit of the creative use of the mind by man? The limit is defined according to his own thinking and his ability to conceive mentally. What is meant by mental conception? The thing conceived by the mind is first defined in thought, but we do not have to act on it at that moment. We cannot think without acting. An inactive body is the result of an inactive mind. To what extent should we take into account the conditions in which we live when using our creative power? We do not need to take them into account at all, for they are not the cause, but the result and effect. Likewise, as soon as we think, how would a person start changing their conditions? First, they must understand that thought is a reality and not an illusion. Then, they must act as if they already have what they have pondered. How long would it take to do this? The time required to embrace positive thoughts and abandon negative ones depends entirely on the individual, their mental capacity, and their self-control. What is the greatest hindrance? Nothing more and nothing less than ourselves. Can someone help us? Yes, though partially. Even if experts in the law were to help us, sooner or later, we must assume the creative responsibility for our lives. Others may support us during a few moments of the day, but we must think for ourselves all the time. But does God help us? Yes, God helps everyone through the law. The love of all is the law of all. And how should we pray? We should give thanks, as if we already have what we have asked for. We must believe this with absolute certainty. Whatever you ask for in prayer, believe that you have received it, and it will be yours. Mark 11:24. Moreover, we should not think or act according to a mentality of self-limitation. Ultimately, an individual is law unto themselves. Definitions: God, spirit, infinite mind, self-conscious life, truth, intelligence, love, all cause and all effect. That invisible power that does all things from itself by an internal action of its own thought upon itself. The visible universe, the ideas of God in expression, the body of God, expression of the divine mind. All visible life, expression of an inner concept. Law, mind and intelligence in action. Law is not cause but effect. All law, universal vibration. It is not intelligence but the result of intelligence. It follows the cause, thought, the activity of the mind. Man, a thinking center in the mind. Creation, thought becoming form. Conception without defect. Sin, lack of understanding. Justice, spiritual understanding. And disease, the image of thought held in the mind that appears in the body. Health, the realization of perfect life. Poverty, limited thought. Wealth, the realization of our unity with life, which is unlimited. Consciousness, the realization of the fact that we are life. Awareness of power and activity. Truth, what is? Realization, the process of inner thought through which we become aware of our unity with life. Absolute, self-knowledge. Causality, God, spirit, life, what is intelligence? What knows that it is? Unfolding, the birth of ideas that arise from the mind. Illusion, the belief in two powers. Soul, the creative inner life and its receptive sense. Sense, it is not an illusion but the faculties through which we contact life in its expression. Movement, the inner activity of life that produces manifestation. Effect, result of movement. Word, the activity of thought. Faith, positive mental activity. Fear, negative mental activity or attraction, the power of thought's gravitational pull. Unity, a mind that flows through everything and in everything. Objective, life in its exterior form. Subjective, life in its thought or interior form. Karma, the law of cause and effect, result of past thoughts and actions that binds the ignorant and frees the wise. Multiplicity, the emergence of the one into an infinite variety of forms, colors, and movements. Treatment, mental and spiritual activity of thought with a defined purpose. Demonstration, the result of correct thinking and heaven. The atmosphere of right thinking. Hell, the atmosphere of false thinking. Peace, the state of rest in which the mind realizes it is all. Composure, an inner calm that never fears. Power, the result of the union of peace and composure,